Hello and welcome to the 19 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1 Baseball Preview and Pick Show, Day 4 in Omaha, Nebraska. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney, and our postseason is presented by Wilson. Want to shout out the Omaha experience over in the Baseball Village. You've got limited edition products from Evo Shield, DeMarini, Louisville Slugger, and Wilson. You can shop for bats and gloves and gear, again, over at the Omaha experience. If you're here at the College World Series, you've got to get over there. It's absolutely fantastic. If you're not here, you can go online to evoshield.com/Omaha, all tournament long. Really appreciative of our partnership with Wilson. And again, if you're going through the Baseball Village, get over into that Omaha experience. It is super fantastic. There's the great Jake Mintz's glove right there on his head, which is beautiful. And let me introduce our guests. Our guests. We've got Coach Mintz of the Harlem Hellfighters. We've got the great Joe Healy. We've got Kendall Rogers, and the prodigal son has returned. Hashtag Zebby Barrels. Hashtag Fitty Barrels. Fitzy, it is good to see your face. Welcome to Nebraska.
Well, you know what? Thanks for having me on your show, guys. And thanks for all you do for the game as well. Really, it's been so much fun watching the coverage from afar the first few days.
I love that. Joseph, you had requested you wanted the rock. You've got something that needs to be discussed.
Well, I called for the ball in the
post.
Yeah, because when you look at Joe Healy, you're like, that's a guy who needs the ball in the post.
Get him the rock.
It's 5'8" guy. I would like to run down a top 5 list I've compiled. Here's my list here. Top 5 people, top 5 celebrities I have shared the hotel gym with so far. All right, are we ready?
Yes. Love this.
Number 5, Omaha's most eligible bachelor, Mike Monaco.
Underrated.
Number 4, LSU great Todd Walker.
Yes.
Ta-da!
Nice.
Number 3.
I would put Monaco over Walker, but continue.
Oh yeah, I mean, make your own list, Jake. Okay. Number 3, Tom Walter. By the way, Tom Walter on the treadmill, a sight to behold. Dead sprint the entire time.
Wow.
Getting it.
Walker out of a uniform looks like 10 years younger than he does in a uniform.
That's
fair. Precisely. Number 2, the guy we've seen walking around the hotel with the parrot on his shoulder.
Who's working out?
Now, point of clarification, he did not have the parrot with him. I know you were wondering. And secondly, therefore, I cannot 100% confirm it was him, but I'm pretty sure it was. So that's number 2.
You gotta have strong shoulders to hold that parrot.
That's right. Yeah, he was doing a lot of traps, he was
nice.
And number 1, of course, a new entrant today, number 1 with a bullet, Kendall Rogers.
Yeah. Oh man. What a suck up.
Can I one up you? I shared a sauna with Mike Monaco the other day.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Now we're getting kind of personal here.
The heat was just based on his good looks alone.
Yeah. I turned the sauna off and it was hotter than ever in there.
Yes. Between Mike Monaco and Todd Walker, you're talking about some seriously quality DNA right there. These are 2 gifted.
Speaking of Monaco, if you go look at the Stephen Schock video of him doing the selfie and then panning over to Monaco across the bar, I was laughing so hard at that.
That was well done. Yes. Gentlemen, let us proceed. Let us get into the discussion. Why don't we cap up yesterday? I mean, yesterday, very interesting day. Mostly interesting to me because I went 0 for 2 in my picks again. That side of the bracket has not been kind to Coach Rooney. 0 for 4 currently and counting. So yeah, stay hot there, Michael Patrick. So Kendall, you kick us off. Give me a thought from yesterday.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, looking at the early game, when you look at TCU, is the job that Bennett Belt. TCU's kind of the theme this year has been Cole Klecker, young arm, Bennett Belt, a young arm. And he threw really well for them out of the bullpen yesterday, 1 2/3, and to kind of hold that lineup of Virginia down for the entire game. I think Virginia had 2 hits going in the last couple innings of the game. So I thought TCU's pitching stood out to me, and that was kind of my takeaway of that first game.
Joe?
I think we saw that the challenge of Omaha is as much psychological and emotional as it is physical sometimes, because I think we saw a Virginia team that, really gave it to Florida a little bit, went toe-to-toe with Florida to open the tournament. And then yesterday just felt a little flat. Now, credit to the pitchers, as Kendall alludes to, credit to the TCU pitchers for being a part of that. But they did feel a little bit flat yesterday. It felt like that was a group of pitchers they should have been able to handle, and they just didn't. And that's how Omaha works sometimes. You're this close to being in the winner's game, and you lose it, and then all of a sudden you turn around 48 hours later and you're out of the tournament. And that's just kind of the way it works.
Yep. Coach Mintz, what say you?
Kyle Teal, Jake Geloff, I believe a combined 0 for 15 here in Omaha with
That's
2
not gonna
walks.
work.
It's really that simple
Yeah.
for UVA. The rest of the team, in a way, did its job, right? If you take a look at the stat lines for all the other guys in that lineup and the rotation and even the bullpen, you're like, okay, yeah, maybe we win one of these 2 games if you get something from Geloff and Teal, and they just didn't do that. Geloff in particular, it was a little frustrating yesterday. He swung at a lot of first pitches. He had that at bat, I think it was in the 8th inning, where there was a runner, or they had just like cut it to 1, and he swings at a first pitch and just pops it up deep to the outfield. And like, I understand that's the approach that's gotten you this far, but at a certain point, you got to make a couple of adjustments, and they just weren't able to do that here.
Yep. Fitty, I'm going to pass on you for this one since you were piloting your plane out here.
I do have a quick take.
Oh, please,
if you'll allow me, please.
Absolutely.
Just TCU's resilience, because it's a team that hadn't lost in a while, and it was kind of like, all right, so Sarlo said they were going to respond. They responded last time they lost about, 6 weeks ago. But it's been a while. And so I just kind of curious to see how they would get off the mat. And I thought, from what I could tell, it looked like they kind of, I wouldn't say dominated that game, but I mean, they out hit Virginia 12-5, right? I mean, it was only 1-run game, but like it kind of felt like TCU played a much better game and was just much sharper. And good for them. They recovered well from that loss.
Yeah, and I would say, to your guys' points, like it felt like Virginia got beat by Florida twice. Like they got beat in that first game, and then because the real opportunity for Virginia was the first half of that game, and they just weren't. They were still a little hungover from the Florida loss, and I think for TCU, when you're hot, right? Like Sam Stoutenborough is a strike thrower and a veteran, and he's got skill, but he doesn't have a ton of upside. And just, I think credit Kirk Saarloos, where they've created a really specific plan for Sam Stoutenborough. And it's if you don't have a really locked in offensive approach, that plan will work. And it did. And by the time, then you brought up Ben Abel, Kendall, like, that's a real reliever now. Like that's sidearm pitching from second base. Like he's pitching from the 4-3 hole, and it's 91-93, and just blew Kyle Teal away, blew Anthony Stefan away. That kid's going to be exciting.
Sandpaper underwear for lefties, not comfortable.
Yes, that's right. Still tangling with that visual, but thank you for that. Excellent. Yeah. So interesting. I would say this as we put a bow on Virginia. 6 Omahas in 14 years is really incredible. I mean, that's like elite. And, it's a fairly young team. They lose some stars, but 6 of the players in the lineup are back. The thing that hurt Virginia, in my opinion, here is that they've got 5 really talented freshman arms that all pitched this year, but pitched in low leverage situations and never entered the circle of trust. I mean, I guess Jack O'Connor kind of did, but he was barely in the circle of trust when they got here. And I'm not a fan of hey, let's bring in 3 more transfers, jam them into the rotation. Like if Virginia's going to take the next step, those 5 freshman arms, they have to be the guys next year. And then the transfers are the fill-ins. This year, unfortunately, the transfers were the rotation, and the freshmen were trying to get in the circle of trust.
Yeah, the other thing that I thought was really interesting about Virginia is I think when you look at some of these other teams in this field, guys, like you look at even Ryan Bruno, even though he struggled, like it's a premier arm, right? Like I thought just watching Virginia's arms, like my like takeaway was like these are just like above average arms. Like there's nothing. I didn't think there was anything special out of that pitching staff, and I think that was kind of the differentiator for me with Virginia's bullpen and their pitching staff versus some of these other teams in this field.
It's funny, Kendall.
Not a lot of juice.
Yeah, that's where my brain is at. But here's the contradiction. I'll contradict my own point.
Okay.
Like they didn't go into an Omaha because they didn't pitch well enough. They went into an Omaha because they didn't play good enough offense. But I still think your point and my point still stands, Kendall. Like you're probably not winning the national championship with just nothing but pitchability. Somebody's got to be able to miss a bat. Somebody's got to be able to overwhelm a hitter. And I didn't see that from Virginia. So
and to your point earlier, Rooney, it will be interesting to see, going forward, how do they build their teams on the mound in particular? I mean, do you just continue to play the transfer game now? Is anyone going to actually like develop young arms? Like all these freshman guys, like you said, I mean, these are some really good recruits that Virginia brought in, and a lot of years past they would be the Sunday starters, and then they would kind of graduate to Friday starter as sophomores. And we've seen that so many times over the years with these Virginia arms, whether it's Connor Jones or Kirby or whoever else going way back. And this year that didn't really happen. And so how many of those guys will stick around? I mean, in this day and age, like in the portal, I mean, people just seek greener pastures. And B, do they suffer from that lack of development time going forward? I don't know. I mean, everybody's facing the same stuff. I mean, we're not picking on Virginia, but it's just like, how do you go about building your team now? If you're a program that historically has done a really good job with that, of kind of easing your power arms along as freshmen, and then boom, they're guys. How does that work now going forward? I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
Yep, I love it. Hey, and let's just put a bow on yesterday. Hey, Oral Roberts just keeps ignoring reality, right? Like they're playing this superpower in Florida, and they're like, whatevs. They like don't care, and gonna take a run at them, and almost pulled it off. Just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and how about the job? Oh, go ahead, Jake.
Hurston Waldrop yesterday.
Yeah.
It kind of gets lost because of the Sully mound visit counting issue, but Hurston Waldrop, 6 innings, 1 run, 12 Ks. He made himself some money in the draft last night. And the slow-mo shots from the center field cam of the splitter, that is special. Amazing. That is absolutely special. I don't want Paul Skeens on Saturday to distract us from Hurston Waldrop on Sunday, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they put out the spin rates, and I think they had the slider at like 33. I think it was 33.62, and they had the splitter at 720. I actually wrote about this yesterday. Or like last night, but that is now 37 strikeouts in his last 21 innings of work with just 1 run allowed. That's a pretty incredible run here in the postseason, guys.
Just a quick thing also about the splitter, which is a pitch we don't see a lot here stateside, especially compared to Japan. 1.5 of all pitches in the big leagues last year were splitters versus about 10% in Japan. And if you take a look at the World Baseball Classic final, between the U.S. and Japan was throwing like a ton of splitters, and the U.S. hitters just don't see that a lot in the big leagues. And so if you have a legit splitter like Waldrop does, that's the type of pitch that really plays at the next level.
Like late stage Roger Clemens.
Yeah,
love that. Kurt Schilling. Yeah. Hey, and by the way, let's give a shout out. We're getting these spin rates from the Creighton Baseball Analytics guy. Their Twitter handle is a must follow during the College World Series. I picked up on that yesterday, and it was super, super fun. So, boys, let's do our picks for today. Fitzy, I'll start with you. So what we're looking for is give me a player to look at, a player to watch in the Tennessee Stanford game. A player, a thought in your pick.
Okay. So Tennessee Stanford game. I mean, I'm just going to say Stanford bullpen as a player. I mean, because that just feels to me like the thing that I was so excited about with Stanford down the stretch when I saw him against UCLA. I was like, wow, this is coming together. And then it's been kind of shaky here in the postseason, guys. And, if they're going to make this run, they need those guys to be better. But that said, I still believe in this group of Stanford players, this veteran bunch, their athleticism. It feels like Tennessee is the smart pick here, but I'm just going to say that Stanford finds a way. My pick is the Cardinal.
Interesting. Coach Mintz, what do you got here?
Drew Bowser needs to step up. Big players make big plays in big games. And in the Super Regional, he homered in all 3 of those games. 0 for 4 against Wake Forest in the opener. But not just that, he looked kind of out of sync. His timing wasn't right. To have a guy like that in the 7 hole, right, we really need to understand how absurd that is. I know he had a bit of a down year, but to have Drew Bowser down there in the 7th hole, that's a big deal. Only 2 runs scored from Wake in that game, and they had a lot of traffic, a lot of guys on. They kind of need the bottom of that lineup to drive in some of those guys at the top. And then, can you come back to me with my pick?
Yeah,
I didn't.
Sure.
I'm procrastinating.
I like it. Yeah, stall. Coach Healy, what are you saying?
I guess I'll go with the obvious answer here. As a player watching Quinn Matthews, just what does he have in the tank, right? I think we're all kind of fascinated and waiting with bated breath to see what we see from him. And that kind of ties into my I guess, big picture thing to watch in this game is that if he's on his game, he feels like someone who could tie Tennessee in knots a little bit. Tennessee seems like the kind of team they're up for the velocity. They want the smoke, as people would say. Like they want the, come at me and throw at us with high velocity. Now, of course, skiing is a whole different animal, and that didn't go great, but it didn't for anybody this year.
Mm-hmm.
But just your standard like high velocity arm, they want to see that. That's kind of what they want. Quinn Matthews is obviously not that. Like he's more of a Michelangelo. He's up there trying to paint, and it's like an art form sometimes when he's throwing the ball well. But is he going to have that today? We don't know. But if he does, I mean, Tennessee's a high strikeout team. They're an aggressive swinging team. They have a number of left-handed batters in their lineup. Like it's just a tricky matchup in general if Matthews is on his game. I don't know that he will be, but I'm with Fitt. I'm picking Stanford here because I do think everyone at the best on best, I like Matthews against that lineup.
Yep. KR?
Yeah, I think if you look at Tennessee and the regional and the super regional, one of the big keys for them was Zane Denton getting big hit after big hit. And if you look at the LSU game of the night, granted, like Joe mentioned, everybody struggled against Paul Skeens, but I mean, 3 strikeouts, really didn't have a chance, didn't make an impact. And I think for Tennessee, when you look at their run, he's made a big impact. So I think today against Quinn Matthews, he needs to make a big impact.
Very good. I'm just intrigued with Chase Dolander. Like he really impressed me against Southern Miss, where he could have just packed that in after 5 innings. He really that's what as Chris from Louisville would say, that's what a real dude does, is just kind of gets through that storm and just gets very deep into that game. Him against the Stanford offense, which I think is really a dynamic and scary group. I think that's going to be fun to watch today. I'm picking Stanford. I'm with you guys. I just I feel like they're going to win. Like they've just struggled out here, and I just don't feel like that's going to last forever. I like that position player group, but Quinn Matthews has got to be big because there's just not a lot of options, on that pitching staff right now.
I'm taking Tennessee, by the way.
Okay, Jake.
I didn't make my pick, so.
Well, I think a huge storyline to watch here is the first inning Dolander against the Stanford offense. Dolander's first inning ERA is extraterrestrial. I mean, it is up there. It is exploring the galaxy. And then after that, he's been superb. Yeah. If Stanford jumps on him early, that'll be a big tell for this game. That being said, I am going to go with Tennessee just so we don't have, again, like the college game day lower where we look like idiots. Yeah. I'm going to back Kendall up. I think Christian Moore against Quinn Matthews will be a very interesting matchup. I like Moore in that showdown with the righty stick against the lefty. I think Tennessee is going to have I think we're going to get another close one. We're going to get another close one.
Yeah, I love Christian Moore. How about this? Like if you're Stanford, you will have faced Rhett Lauder and Chase Dolander in this deal. And if you're Tennessee, you will face Paul Skeens and Quinn Matthews. I mean, # stay caliente right there. Like that is not
this side of the bracket. This side of the bracket is not for the faint of heart, boys.
No.
Best of luck.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Braveheart. Where's William Wallace when you need him? Fitzy, why don't you take us to Wake Forest versus LSU? How about that game?
Yeah, obviously super excited about this one. The only 2 teams that have been ranked number 1 in the D1 baseball top 25 this year will now face off. So that's pretty fun.
What about Missouri?
What about Missouri? That's a great question. Many people are asking. It's for me. It comes down to which version, I guess, of Josh Hartle are we going to get, and he's been really good basically all year. And I kind of think we're going to get that guy that we've seen all year long. I mean, his ERA is in the 2s now. I mean, it's not, he's got a great strikeout walk rate. I was so impressed in the super regional, the way that he settled in on a very, very difficult day to pitch. The wind was howling out. There were 13 home runs in that game. He allowed 2 early, and then he put up some zeros and kind of just stabilized the game. The way that he can kind of, just kind of throw off hitters' timing a little bit by going with the cutter, and then he can go with a little bit of a bigger breaking ball, and he can throw his regular fastball with some cut, and they all move kind of in the same direction, but just in varying degrees. He's talking about an artist. I just think his artistry is fun to watch, and I think that he's a very, very tough matchup, obviously against lefties from that ridiculous slot that he's got and the extension and all that stuff. And I just look forward to seeing that mighty LSU offense match up against him. And
Yeah.
I'm taking Wake Forest.
Jake?
It's the LSU pitching staff. It has to be. It is the biggest Achilles heel for them. I know that down the stretch they have solidified some things. Doesn't matter. It's not Paul Skeens, and this Wake Forest offense is going to be the most explosive team that they have seen all season long. They're going with Ty Floyd, right, to start.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, the question for me is, how long does he last? Where do they go from there? And how long he goes will determine who comes in after him. Like, I know Riley Cooper had his moment the other day. Ain't nobody can touch me was outstanding.
Incredible.
I am worried about him against the Wake lineup if he has to face them more than one time through. I will be taking Wake Forest. And unfortunately, I think this is going to be our first boat race of the tournament.
Ooh, interesting. Coach Healy, what say you?
Jake just singed my eyebrows off with
Seriously.
that there at the
Coming
end.
in.
LSU Twitter is about to come after Jake, by the way.
By the way, as the son of an English teacher, ain't nobody can touch me. Kind of made my heart stop for a second.
It's not quite as
I
good as
disagree
make
with
them
you.
feel you.
I disagree with you, Healy. Reshaping the English language to your own whims in order to get the point across, that's still, a very good feel for the written word.
That's
More-
uniquely American.
More artistry here on the show.
Yeah,
Yes,
you know what?
like that.
Jake actually convinced me. You know what? I'm on board now.
You have already mentioned Michelangelo, so
That's right.
Very good.
So my player watch is Tommy Hawk for Wake Forest, not just as a table setter, although that's obviously important, but also because he's someone who can push the issue on the bases. And when you're playing an LSU team that is going to have Hayden Travinsky behind the plate, much more of an offensive guy than a defense guy, LSU also typically not a team overly concerned with holding runners. Not somebody who's going to do a lot of like quick pitches and like they're just going to focus on getting the batter. I think there's an opportunity for Wake to do some things on the bases and maybe speed LSU up a little bit, because the other thing, in addition to LSU's pitching, is that as much improved as the defense has been, you can speed them up a little bit and get them to make some mistakes. So Tommy Hawk being on the bases and doing that feels important. I'm choosing Wake Forest.
Kendall?
yeah, I'll tell you what. I think the key for me is I'm going to go with a collective unit as LSU's offense against Josh Hartle. I don't think it's a great matchup for LSU. Just kind of thanks to our friends at 643 Charts, I'm just kind of diving into this because I've seen LSU struggle against lefties at times this year. LSU's hitting about 16 points lower against lefties and righties, and also with 2 strikes, they're hitting 25 points less versus lefties than righties. So I think those two stats are kind of interesting to me. And again, I think Hartle's a little bit of a rough matchup. And again, Jay kind of pointed to LSU bullpen, but you get to the back end of the game, and to me, Wake has a huge advantage. I thought Wake looked really average the other day, and they still won. I don't think they're going to look very average today, and I think they're going to win. So I like Wake Forest.
Oh man, I'm in a real pickle here because I'm here on behalf of the ACC network, and so I think that makes me contractually obligated to pick Wake, and I will pick Wake. I see Carson Kilgore in the chat saying keep sleeping on LSU, and I don't want to keep sleeping on LSU. Like the team is frightening. It's really the whole LSU vibe. I keep referring to them as the most famous team in college baseball this year, and I do really feel that. And it's the Skeens Cruz factor, it's the Tommy White factor, but they didn't win the SEC also. So like LSU is just there's just a lot going on there in a very compelling and entertaining way. But
I just want to be clear, like LSU could win today.
No doubt.
Yes.
I know that all 5 of us picked Wake Forest, and I said I think it's going to be a little bit of a boat race. LSU is a talented and deep enough team that they could win today, and that's baseball.
No doubt. Yeah, that's baseball. Well said. That's baseball. So, yeah, I think it's going to be – I think the Wake Forest offense, like you guys said, that's a real important part. Like, that's a big part. What makes Wake Forest the best team is they're good at everything, and their offense has to be better than it was the other day. That's just what's got to happen.
I'm excited about this. I mean, if I'm being honest, this is like what I was looking forward to when I came to Omaha, was this potential matchup in the winners bracket.
Yes, no question about it. So, well done, gentlemen. Mom in Texas was in the chat, and she noticed that I made my bed this morning, which I appreciate that very much. I did, in fact, make the bed. I'm not going to call out anyone else on the chat, but we do need, the expectation is set that like we make beds at d1baseball.com. So
Speak
It's a
for
very nice
yourself.
observation.
Speak for yourself.
Now you got to Rooney. Now you got to lay in it though.
Yeah, I see what you did there. Speaking of English teachers. So, hey, before we wrap, I want to just thank you, Mom in Texas. So if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube site. That is very, very helpful for the enterprise. And that's it. Day 4 is going to be something. I mean, this is, again, like Wake LSU tonight. Buckle your seatbelts. Just absolutely awesome. Thanks again to our friends at Wilson and the Wilson Omaha experience. And that is it. We will catch you on the live stream tomorrow for day 5. Have a good day, everybody.